I'm sitting down today with two members from VPIRG's environmental health team to talk about their time in the VPIRG Fellowship Program, summer canvas organizing, and advocacy efforts on key environmental issues this legislative session. You won't want to miss it. This is Vermont's Voice. I'm sitting down today with environmental advocate Anna Seuberling and environmental associate Alexis because we're going to be talking all about the incredible work they're doing at VPIRG and all around the state. So Alexis, Anna, thank you so much for being here and welcome to Vermont's Voice.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks for having us.
Of course, I'm so excited about our conversation because there's a lot that I want to get into. The reason why you're sitting here together in this moment is because I'd like to start by talking about the fellowship program, if that's okay. And then from there, we will sort of veer off and I'll talk to you both individually about your specific program areas. But for now, I do want to get into fellowship. I think it's pretty relevant. And Anna, you are no longer a fellow. You've recently been promoted to advocate, so congrats.
Thank you.
And you, Alexis, are in the midst of your fellowship. So the timelines are slightly different, but I think still very relevant to have you both here to talk about this. So unless you have any immediate thoughts or questions, I think we just get right into it.
That sounds good to me.
Okay, great. So could one or both of you tell me a little bit more about the VPIRG Fellowship Program? What should our listeners know?
Yeah, totally. I can start. Basically, VPIRG's Fellowship Program is kind of this way for VPIRG to, train the next generation of public interest advocates. It takes, people like Anna or like me who don't necessarily have a ton of experience in the advocacy world, and VPIRG takes, the time, the tools, and puts the resources into us to help us develop those skills. During the legislative session, that's kind of spending a lot of your time in the State House. That's what I've been getting to do lately. And you're kind of developing, policy expertise or you're getting to lobby towards legislators. And then, during the summer, you get to switch over. That's coming up soon. And you get to lead the summer canvas, which is really cool. And then, they give you a ton of responsibility. I don't really know of any other programs that allows somebody so young to have as much responsibility in such an important setting. But I think that the VPIRG staff kind of understands that younger people, especially when you're right out of college and you've just learned all of these problems of the world, there's so much passion and capacity to give, and it allows them to put that energy towards something meaningful. So I've been feeling, really grateful to be able to take all of my energy and put it into something that's actually making change. It's definitely changed my life. I'm sure it's probably changed Anna's too, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think Alexis summed it up really well. It's a hands-on learning experience that I owe so much of my professional development to, if not all of it. I think back to the time when I started with VPIRG in 2021, where I started as a canvasser, knocking on doors for the bottle bill campaign, and that feels like so long ago. But fast forward a couple years out of college, I get to work on really meaningful environmental policy. And if you told like my sophomore UVM self that this is the work I'd get to be doing right out of college, I probably would have had a hard time believing you. It's really special. And I think for any young professional looking to do community organizing, community engagement, politics, policy, I couldn't recommend this opportunity more.
That's great. I'm so glad you both have really good experiences with the fellowship, and I'm sure many would say the same. And you both touched on the canvas a little bit, so I think it makes sense to dig into that some more because, as you mentioned, Alexis, part of the role of a fellow is to organize and oversee VPIRG Summer Canvas. And so coincidentally, we're recruiting for that as we speak, right, for this next cohort of canvassers. So why should somebody apply to spend their summer knocking doors?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. And there are probably so many reasons why. I think for me, if there's anyone out there listening remotely considering canvassing this summer, I would say to think about the world that we're living in right now. There are no shortage of really daunting issues to care about, whether it be like climate change, toxic pollution, threats to our democracy. There are so many issues to really like be angry and like scared about. And I think especially for young people, we're not often given the opportunity to feel like we can move the dial on these issues. And a lot of them feel like untouchable and really distant. But canvassing completely flips the narrative on that story. Like every summer, VPIRG canvassers talk to people that hold the same like hopes and fears and anxieties about the world that you do, and informs them about these issues, engages with them, and probably most importantly, like invites them to take action. And that like is such a real way to make tangible change and has like so many ripple effects. Like I oftentimes think about maybe the best example of this is like our Make Big Oil Pay campaign. Mm-hmm. We spent that summer knocking on thousands of doors and gained so much support and petition signatures, and took all of that excitement for this radical idea to make big oil pay to the state house. And, you know, fast forward a little bit of time, Vermont becomes the first state to hold big oil accountable for the climate crisis that they've caused. All that being said, if people are looking for ways to funnel their anger and concern about our world, like the canvas is absolutely the avenue to do it in.
And where could they go to apply?
Great question. They can go to vpirg.org, where we have like a hiring page, and they can find our application there.
Perfect. Anything you'd like to add there, Alexis?
Yeah.
It's okay if not.
Yeah. I think Anna definitely covered a lot of it. I think the one thing for me, this was my first summer on the canvas. The one thing that I kind of want to touch on, I've always been a very, like passionate person. I haven't always had a ton of outlets to kind of get to express that. I've always felt like a little bit filtered. And I think that for me, the canvas was the first time I was ever really in a space where I got to go in and, fully be around like-minded people who I'll care just as much about all of the things that I care about and like want to talk about it all the time. So I got to leave this summer with kind of this really tight-knit group of friends in a way that I've never had, where now I kind of have this space to constantly, be able to care in the way that I want to, as openly as I want to be able to. And for me, that's been a really big gain in my life, and it's been really important. And I didn't know I was going to get that from the canvas, but it's been super special. So
I like that. I really love that you're mentioning that, because while I don't go door knocking in the way that you all do, and maybe I should do more of that this summer, maybe I'll tag along. It's so true, though, to even like work in this office with all of you. It's like such a saving grace right now to be able to just like commiserate and talk about everything that's going on with like-minded individuals, because I imagine a lot of workplaces are not like that. And so I feel really lucky that we can all connect and just talk about what we're feeling right now, because there's just so much going on. So totally, really love that you brought that up. Okay, well, because I feel like every single canvasser has one, I'm dying to know what your most cherished to date canvas memory is. Either of you can start.
Yeah, I can go. I think that my most cherished canvas memory is probably from the first week of the canvas. It was like my third or fourth day as a canvasser. I think we were in Richmond, Vermont. And I remember having this really big hill in the canvassing map that I was, knocking on doors. I remember being kind of tired. It was like closer to the end of the day. And I was getting near to like the top of the hill that I was biking up. And I remember knocking on this door. I was feeling, a little bit done with the day. But then this woman and her daughter opened the door, and immediately she was like, "Oh my God, VPIRG, I used to be a VPIRG canvasser like 10 years ago." Oh. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's awesome." And what we ended up doing is she brought her daughter out. She was like telling her daughter all about what VPIRG is and how special it is. And we spent a couple of minutes like picking flowers from her garden. I know, to like use for we do photo petitions, which are just like you take a photo saying, at the time it was like, save our pollinators. And in that photo, it's all the flowers. It's the daughter holding all the flowers that we had picked. And then, the woman like told me all about how important this job is. She was like, this changed the course of my life. I've been in advocacy work ever since. Like, don't take all the work you're doing for granted. And I had never heard about VPIRG from an outside person. Like, this was only my first week. So,
Right. Wow.
yeah, I feel like it changed like the way that I thought about my job after that. It was a really cool experience to have so early on into the canvas.
And what a way to end a long day, too.
I know. That's the thing is I was so tired going into that floor. And then I talked to her, and after that I was like, this has been the best trip.
That's amazing. I'm so glad you had that experience. And what about you?
Mine also took place at the top of a hill. Like it's always
There's a lot of hills in Vermont.
There's a lot of hills in Vermont, and it's always worth it to bike up them because you never know what's going to be at the top.
I'll take your word.
Yeah. And in this time, I guess I was in Lincoln, Vermont, and I biked up the top of a hill and went to go knock on the door, and this family was in their backyard enjoying like a fire, and they like kind of saw me come up, and they're like, oh, is that VPIRG? Like, come on back, come on. And I like got to go hang out with this family over their fire pit, and I roasted a s'more with them and like got to talk to them. And their kids too were like very attentively listening to what I had to say about the Keep Vermont Cool campaign. Yeah. It was awesome. Totally. And it was super fun. Just like getting to see glimpses of people's lives is so special, and like talking about these, really scary issues and like a personal environment, like over a s'more, like so special.
Just community building at its finest. And Vermonters really love canvassers. I hear this all the time. Yeah. So I don't know if Vermont is just a special place where that's a thing, or if this is just like one of those activities that deeply resonates with folks no matter where you are.
Yeah, so, I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah. Really cool that we get to do that. So just going back to fellowship broadly, I think there's a lot of cool things, but I think what's particularly really cool to me is that for many, this is someone's like first job out of school. I know you touched on this a little bit, but I remember a few years ago, there was a fellow who came up to me and was just kind of asking for feedback because they confided that this was quote unquote their first adult job. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that because that's a really special thing, but also naturally there's going to be some learning curves that you need to just adjust to, right? That's life, especially at that point in someone's life. So I'm curious to hear if you have any sort of learning lessons from your time in the fellowship that are worth sharing with our listeners.
Yeah. I think for any young professional entering the workforce for the first time, it can be pretty intimidating to like be in that new environment, and it's easy to let ideas of self-doubt and like imposter syndrome in. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is like how to find confidence in this like new professional landscape. And something that's helped me a lot is like having trust in your team, like having trust that, they see so much potential in you, and like trusting them to like want to have your best interests in mind, and like that they want to see you succeed. And that's like, quite frankly, like easy to do when like I have such an awesome team here to support me. I like felt super welcome from like the first day. And just like having that confidence is important. I think just another thing too, especially for me, is like being really authentic to yourself and when you're entering the workforce, and trusting that your team wants you to succeed, yes, like in this work setting, but also they value you as a person.
Yeah.
And like something that's like really close to my identity is outside of work, I'm also a part-time artist. And
so glad you're bringing this up.
Oh my gosh. And that's really important to me, and like bleeds into like everything that I do. So it's really special when like my coworkers come out to my art show. Jordan, you were there a few months ago, or like Eli behind the camera is super awesome and swings by the studio. Thank you so much.
They should totally plug that at some point.
Totally will. So that all being said, like it's really makes work a lot easier and more enjoyable when you can have confidence in yourself, in your work, and like who you are as a person. And it's a special place to work in an environment that's like so supportive of both of those things.
Yeah, you got to keep it real.
It's true. It's true.
Alexis?
Yeah. I think that for me, the biggest thing that I've been learning is, I mean, like you kind of said, like this is like, at least for me, like it does feel like my first kind of adult job. It's my first big job outside of college. And I think that I kind of thought that because this is like an adult job, or however you want to describe, because it's so impactful and important, that I had to have this like new adult version of myself like ready to go on my first day, which is super unrealistic and not attainable at all. So there was a couple of weeks where I was feeling really stressed. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not as put together as I want to be. Like, I'm still learning so many things. But now that it's been like 6 or 7 months, what I'm learning is like I have this entire fellowship experience to like learn who I want to be like when I'm done with the fellowship, which I know like sounds a little bit corny, but it's super true. Like developing and becoming kind of like a new version of yourself takes a lot of time, and you have to do it really slowly, and it can be a really awesome process. And I'm now realizing like I have the time to take a breath and like learn. And at the end of my fellowship, I am definitely going to be a very different person, but I don't have to already have that person figured out. Like when I start, it can be at the end, and then I'll probably like change some more, I'm assuming. And there's like a lot of time, and that's like what I've been learning, which has been really good for me.
That's beautiful. And I think we're just going to keep evolving until we die, right? I mean, really, I'm 30. I'm still figuring it out. A lot of stuff I have no idea. So I think that's really great that you mentioned that. And just for the record, I've always found you to be very put together. So that's something you've been stressing out about. It's not really reasonable at all. Yes. Yeah, for sure. So I love that we've talked a little bit about fellowship, a little bit about Canvas more specifically. And then in just a moment, we're going to pivot and we'll talk about each of your individual sort of program areas while both focus on environmental health. There's a lot in that space. So we're going to divvy that up. But before we get to that, is there anything else either of you want to mention while you're just sitting here together and we're talking about this?
Yeah, I think I just want to take a second to like reiterate. I know we've already talked a little bit about the Canvas and how awesome of a summer job it is. But if that's a job that sounds interesting to you, those links are all still live on our website. You should totally go apply. It's an awesome job, an awesome experience. And then the other thing is, obviously, because Vermont is so rural, we're not always walking door to door. A lot of the times we take bikes. And we have a huge fleet of bikes. VPIRG already has a ton of those, but we can always use more. So if you have a bike that's just kind of going to sit in your garage all summer, it would be super awesome if you wanted, you could donate it to the Canvas and we can use it to help mobilize Vermonters. So yeah, we could always use more. Totally donate, reach out if that's something that you want to do.
Great.
Yeah, donate those bikes for sure.
Uh-huh.
One thing from me is that it's been super awesome to see Vermonters come out in the cold and protest the Trump administration, or like when JD Vance came to ski here. People are really activated right now. And for folks looking for more opportunities to protest, on April 5th from 12 to 2, there will be another protest on the State House lawn in Montpelier. This should be one of the biggest protests that we've seen yet. We're busy making our signs and figuring out our carpools. So I hope you guys do the same. Come join us, bring your friends, and hope to see you there April 5th, 12 to 2 at the State House lawn.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for bringing that up. I'm totally going to be there.
Nice.
I love that reminder. All right. Well, thanks so much for this. I think we can take a little quick break now, and then we'll come back and do some interviews. That's good.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you. And we're back now with Anna, and we're going to talk all about the work that you are doing at the State House. So before we get to that, you've been with VPIRG for a while now. You said since 2021?
Yeah, that was my first year canvassing. Mm-hmm.
Great. So you've been around the block, and you were recently promoted, which we talked about. And I would love to hear what that transition has been like for you recently, if you feel good talking about it.
Yeah, definitely. I guess I'll kind of compare my experience as an advocate with like what I was doing last year.
Sure.
That sounds good. Last year I was working on our Protect Our Pollinators campaign. This was my first time in the Vermont State House like ever. So really last year I was just trying to like be a sponge as much as possible, like learn the ropes, how to advocate, like how to address senators and representatives.
So much to learn.
There's so much to learn, so much to learn. So really that's like a lot of what I was doing last year, like trying to absorb everything. But this year, I feel like I took a lot of what I learned with my experience from last and kind of shifted over programs. So I'm doing a lot of work on our toxics work and our initiatives for like to take PFAS out of stuff. And yeah, I feel like a lot more confident in my role. I have a lot more ownership of the work that I do.
That's great.
Yeah. And I think like what's been most special about it is like coming back to the State House this year and seeing like a lot of familiar faces, whether it be like legislative champs that I work with or like coalition members or the like scientists that help us build our case and testimony. Like all of these awesome people that I get to work with like really inspire me, and like we're all working towards like a similar goal. And to see that like, wow, a year has passed and I've like developed meaningful relationships with these people, like really has been like a really special part.
Yeah, that's so amazing because with Vermont being such a small state, I feel like you do build those friendships pretty quickly because we're just kind of seeing the same people all over the place. And in the State House, if there's not a ton of turnover, then you have great friends that you can connect with once a new session starts. So very cool, very cool. And while we are on the same topic of State House, and you did mention pollinators ever so briefly, I think it makes sense to talk about some of your success from recent sessions because there's a lot you're working on right now. We're going to get to them, but I want to talk about some of what you've already accomplished in the past. And I wore my special bee earrings and my bee pants.
Totally. I was just going to say, it seems like you're dressed for this particular occasion.
It's awesome, specifically
so much. So, you look great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about our Protect Our Pollinators campaign, which last year for me kind of looked like really closely following Bill H706, which is a prohibition on neonics. For those that don't know, neonicotinoids, or neonics for short, are a type of pesticide often used on corn and soybean seeds. They're applied as like a seed treatment. So they're kind of like painted or like put on the seed. And there's enough active toxic pesticide on a single corn seed to kill upwards of 80,000 bees. So,
yikes.
Yeah, not great. Not great. This stuff is incredibly pervasive through our environment. It enters our waterways, our soils, and is just like really concerning for our ecological and like human health as well. Fortunately, though, the Vermont legislature worked on a bill last year that would prohibit the use of neonics, and I had the privilege of working with a really awesome coalition of farmers, beekeepers, scientists, other advocates in the building on this initiative. And after months of testimony, the House and Senate overwhelmingly passed this bill.
Love when that happens.
Love when that happens. I do have to like be a downer here and tell you that on World Bee Day, no less, the governor vetoed the bill. Boo. Boo. Such a bummer. But the good news is the VPIRG canvas was already in full swing by that time. So canvassers were going out, knocking on doors and getting petition signatures and encouraging folks to reach out to their representatives, their senators, and ask them to override that veto. And mid-June, we were successful, and the chambers overrode that veto, and now H706 is in law.
Incredible. Okay, so it's my understanding that at this point in time, fast forwarding from the last session to where we're at right now, I'm hearing that you've made some substantial progress on PFAS, or forever chemicals, for those who are not familiar with that terminology. Now, you don't have to tell me why this is important. I am deeply terrified of PFAS.
Sure.
But for folks who may be less aware of what that even means, like, could you explain why this is important work?
Yeah, I'd be so happy to. So PFAS stands for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which is a mouthful. So I'll be sticking with the acronym. But essentially, they are a man-made chemical compound known for their water-resistant qualities. So that's why they're often used in a lot of the products that we use. So like nonstick pans, for example, or water-resistant raincoats, food packaging even. And so they're in a lot of our products, and they're often referred to, like you said, as forever chemicals because they're incredibly long-lasting in both our environment and unfortunately our bodies as well. They have the ability to bioaccumulate, and it's this exposure that is linked to really concerning health impacts like different types of cancers, liver damage, and reproductive health issues as well. And not to be more of a downer here, but
This is bad news.
this is really bad news. Unfortunately, the CDC has reported that nearly all people in the U.S. have detectable levels of PFAS in their blood. So if you weren't worried already,
Right.
there's that for you.
And I hear it passes down too if you like bear children. Is that
Oh
true?
my gosh, I don't know.
Okay, we can take that out if that's not true.
Right, I can't confirm or
We'll
deny.
fact check.
Yeah, fact check.
Okay.
Mhm.
Either way, I've just heard a lot of terrible
Sure.
things about this.
Yeah.
And it's very scary.
Really scary.
Okay, so that's a lot of bad news. Was there any other bad news you wanted to cover before I follow up with?
I'll let Alexis cover the rest. Yeah.
Okay, great. So what's great though is that you are working to address this issue in Vermont. So thanks for that. What can you tell us about House Bill 238?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. For a little bit of context, the Vermont state legislature and many other states across the country have often taken an upstream approach to addressing PFAS pollution. So what that means is like really addressing the source of where the PFAS is coming from. And like I mentioned earlier, it's in a lot of our consumer products that when we wash the clothes that have PFAS in them or the dishes that have PFAS in them, it oftentimes gets into our water streams. Right, which is where that pollution, takes place. But the good news, is though, is that, like I said, many states across the U.S. are looking to remove PFAS from those consumer products, and Vermont's made really good headway here. Already, we've have in law products that aren't allowed to have intentionally added PFAS. That includes a long list of products like cosmetics products, juvenile products, menstrual products, artificial turf, firefighting foam, ski wax, textiles, cookware. It's great. Like we have a lot of covered products
I was saying that wasn't any of those products, but yeah, I'm glad they're
and like kind of infuriating also.
Right.
Like makeup that we put on our face every single day. The clothes that we wear have really high amounts of PFAS. So all that to be said, we're doing good work. And the bill that you mentioned, H238, kind of expands on those efforts. The bill proposes to remove PFAS from fluorine-treated containers, cleaning products, and what I find most alarming, dental floss.
Oh, I heard about this.
Yeah. Yep. It's in our dental floss. So even better is that the Vermont House, the House of Representatives, passed the bill on voice vote, and now it's in the Senate making progress there.
Okay.
And we look forward to some positive movement in the Health and Welfare Committee there.
Yeah, I think we need some of that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of what I just heard from you is pretty jarring.
Yeah.
I know we're smiling about it, but it's like, wow, that's a lot to take in.
Right.
So thank you for doing that good work. I'm excited to hear where the bill goes. I'm hoping that we make some more substantial progress on it and we see the banning of, more products that should not have PFAS in them, but do for whatever reason. And I think it makes sense for us to end on a high note, just noting that there was a little bit of heaviness in today's conversation. And typically we like to do little game segments. So if you're open to that, I have actually created something new.
I get a new segment?
Get a new segment.
Great.
And not even Eli knows about this.
Oh,
So this is breaking news. Yeah. And I wanted to do this because you have 4 years of canvassing under your belt, which is like wildly impressive. I think most people can't say that whether they're in Vermont or not. Like that's a lot.
thank you.
So we have to highlight that. And so I'm thinking we could play a new game called Canvas Callouts,
Okay.
where I will name a random town or city somewhere in Vermont.
Okay.
Okay. And you can share a special highlight or recommendation if you have one.
Oh, perfect.
Do we like this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then, if you're good with it,
Sure.
we will play a round of Canvas callouts with Anna Seuberling.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so starting with Castleton. Have you been there, and do you have something that you can share about it?
Yeah, totally. I've been on a couple of camping trips to Castleton. Another shout out for the awesome summer jobs that you get to go camping.
Yeah,
Super cool. Yeah. Went camping there. And if folks have the opportunity to go to the Castleton Rodeo, I would highly, highly recommend going. It's like at this ranch on the top of a hill. I'm sure if you like Google it, like you could find more information, but it's in like late-ish summertime. And yeah, it's super fun. Go see like the horses run around and would highly recommend.
I had no idea Vermont had a rodeo. So
Now
we
you
don't
know.
have to go to the south. It's right here.
No, it's right here at home.
Okay, very cool. All right, how about Randolph?
Yes. Randolph. So probably a lot of people in Chittenden County have seen the whale tails along 89. Randolph has another set of whale tails there, and it's like a little parking lot, and you can go, and it has this beautiful view of the mountains as well. Yeah, would definitely check those out. And if you walk, like you park, you see the whale tails, and if you go left down the trail, it opens up into this really gorgeous open field that has one of my favorite views in the state.
That's so cool. I'm really curious. I'm not expecting you to know the answer to this, but like where the whale tail lore comes from as a landlocked state. Like, do you have any idea?
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's cool.
It's cool.
I'm glad we have it.
Yeah, and maybe like a question for a future episode.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. We look into the history of Vermont's whale tails. Okay. Yeah. We'll come back to it.
Awesome.
Okay. What can you tell me about Morrisville?
Oh my gosh. So glad you asked about Morrisville. It has my favorite camp like area that I've canvassed there. So for people that are like into like trail or mountain biking, there is an awesome part of Morrisville called Mud City Loop. Ooh. Yeah, it's a road that goes around. I think it's like 5 miles or so, and it's so beautiful. It takes you through farmland and like in the woods, and I've canvassed it for the past couple of years and go say hi to like all my mud citizens. Like it's so awesome. Yeah, would recommend like going around there and doing that bike trail.
Okay, yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out. All right, what about Montgomery?
Yeah, so Montgomery's up north a little ways from where we are now, and I guess I would have to recommend, there's a really special place there called the Montgomery Center for the Arts. And it's a renovated old church building that holds like artistic workshops and art shows. And if they're open when you're there, like go check out their website. They've got a lot of postings for things. And it's a really special, just like community that like hosts art events in kind of the middle of nowhere.
That's so cool. It brings sort of both of your lives together into one, right?
Totally.
You have like
Yes.
the canvassing piece and then your work as an artist piece. I don't know if you actually do any artwork there, but like
I have
that's
shown,
cool.
yeah, I have shown a piece there before for one of their
amazing.
shows. Yeah, it was very
Great.
special.
Another plug for your artwork because he's so good. He's chugging. All right. And let's close out with Lincoln because I feel like you mentioned that earlier, right?
Yeah, I did. I love Lincoln. Lincoln is my favorite town in all of Vermont. It has such a special place in my heart. It's beautiful. It's got hills. It's got the mountains that you can climb up. But I think
Where is it? Geographically. I've never been.
totally. It's right next. It's south. It's next to Bristol, which maybe people are a little more familiar with.
Yeah.
So if you, just start driving south. I wish I could give better directions than that. Yeah.
We'll pull up a map or
But it's very beautiful. And if I had to give a recommendation there, I guess I would go swimming at Bristol Falls. Yeah, it's a huge waterfall. It's pretty accessible. There's a lot of like side street parking down the main road there, and a great day trip for the summertime.
Very cool. Yeah. Swimming hole season is coming up. So that's
Can't wait.
a timely recommendation. And thank you for ending it on a high note with me. So totally appreciate all the work you're doing and for informing us about the importance of PFAS and all the work that you're doing to address these like really significant issues in the state. So just so incredibly grateful for your work, for your time here today. I hope you had a good time talking about it.
I had a great time. Yeah, thank you so much, Jordan.
Of course. I'll let you get back to it because I know you're wildly busy, but definitely please keep us posted.
Yeah, will do.
All right. Thank you. Thanks. So, Alexis, welcome back to the desk at the studio. Thanks for hanging out for just a bit.
Totally.
Excited to talk with you about some of your program areas. But before we get into that, I do want to acknowledge that while you're a little bit newer to VPIRG, you have truly hit the ground running, and you've been spending a lot of time in the State House this session. So I'm wondering how you're liking it so far and if anything has been surprising to you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm loving it. As for the State House, I had been there before. I've done work in high school with the State House and in college, but it's been a couple of years. So I was really nervous the first time I came in, for the fellowship. It's a lot more serious than anything I had done before. And I couldn't remember some of the like basic things. Like I didn't really remember where the bathroom was or how to get to the cafeteria. But the biggest like goal that I had set for myself was, over the next couple of months, no matter what I do at VPIRG, I at least just want to get comfortable in this new setting. Mm-hmm. And now it's been a little while and I feel like I've at least accomplished that. Like when I walk in, there's no nerves. I'm not nervous about where I'm going. I feel, it's really awesome. It feels really good to be confident in a space that is so important and you're doing such awesome work inside of. So that's been really, really great to kind of come to. And then in terms of something, what the other question was, something that surprises me.
Yeah, if you've found anything to be surprising, maybe you haven't, but
yeah, I think the thing that I found surprising, I think this is kind of the case in every state house, but it's especially so in Vermont because we're so small, is how accessible our legislators are. Yes. Like I, whether I was working for VPIRG or not, I can walk into that state house and I can ask them anything I want and say anything that I want. And I don't think I had really realized that before until I started doing this particular job. And it's really cool to get to feel like it's such a direct form of democracy to like be able to walk into the state house and immediately go up to a legislator and say, hey, I need to talk to you about this thing. And they listen, which is really exciting. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest surprise for me. It's been really cool to get to see that all come to life.
Yeah. I'll say that was definitely a big surprise for me too. It truly feels like the people's house, right? I imagine it's probably not like that in many other states. I don't know for sure, but the access, as you mentioned, is really a huge part of what I think makes the work we do so successful, right? So, as I mentioned, you are focused on several environmental health issues at this moment, but I want to focus in on two, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'd love it if we could start with your work on plastics, because that's something that deeply concerns me. And I think a lot of our listeners will find it very interesting. So could you tell us a little bit about what you've got going on there?
Yeah, definitely. I think when it comes to plastics, the starting point is just that there is so much of it being produced by the fossil fuel industry, especially like the single-use throwaway kind that like you're using it one time and then it's already in your trash can. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that is polluting everything. Like it pollutes the landfills and the waterways. It's polluting the air. And that's really detrimental to our wildlife. And it poses a really major risk to human health. And that problem is global, but it's also very local, even here in Vermont. I mean, Vermont has one landfill. That landfill has about 20 years left of its life. And a lot of that waste is plastic. About 16% of it is plastic waste. Mm-hmm. It's even really apparent in our grocery stores. I mean, if you walk into a grocery store in Burlington, you're surrounded by individually wrapped produce. Don't ask me why, but like even potatoes are wrapped in plastic, which is crazy. And then you have microplastics, which are like the little bits that break off. You can't even see them. And scientists are finding those in our lakes and our fish. It's even in things like tea and the kind of plastic matters too. Different types of plastic pose different risks to human health. I mean, studies have recently shown that black plastic has these residues of toxic flame retardants. And I mean, unfortunately, if your black plastic sushi tray or your black plastic utensils have those chemicals in them, then there's a good chance it's leaching off that food. And, it's leaching off the plastic into your food, which is really, really scary. So I know I'm painting like a really bleak picture here, but I promise I do plan to talk a lot more about, the exciting things that we're doing, what I've been working on. The biggest thing is, shifting responsibility onto the producers, what they're producing, how much of it. We want to hold them accountable for that. And the really exciting news is that there is global and national traction building for that kind of legislation. And that legislation includes a lot of different things. First of all, it's including, regulations and targets that can look like, recyclability targets, the packaging that you're creating, a certain amount of it has to be recyclable. The things that you're allowed to put into your plastic, the chemicals, banning a lot of those. And then also just cutting down on how much plastic producers are allowed to create to begin with. Another thing that this can look like is shifting the burden of, waste, plastic waste from consumers and back onto the producers. And then the final kind of piece of this puzzle that we're working on right now, and there's a lot of movement for it, is pushing producers to focus on real solutions instead of allowing them to advertise false narratives. There's this, the reality of the situation is like plastic is really, really hard to recycle. And instead of admitting that openly, the industry likes to, kind of push these unrealistic solutions and distract us and divert funds and attention away from the real policy changes that we could be making. And thankfully, there's a wave of states that are saying, no, things like chemical recycling, for example, which is the idea that you can kind of break down the chemical makeup of plastic and turn it into new plastic products. And states are saying, the science says this isn't sustainable. You need to stop advertising this to us. And instead, you need to just cut down on the plastic that you're making.
Right.
And, VPIRG is working really hard to make sure that Vermont is a part of those states that are pushing for that accountability in that way. So it's been really awesome to get to be a part of that, because these are problems I didn't really know. I didn't know how extreme they were until I started working for VPIRG. And now that I've been made so aware, I'm also getting to help us work towards the solution. So
yeah, well, thank you so much for doing that, because as you mentioned, some of this is truly terrifying. I mean, the second you mentioned tea, I look over to my mug. I am actively drinking a cup of tea and thinking about how much plastic might be in my mug. I don't know.
I bought one of those metal tea diffusers where you can put the tea into it, and then because I got a little bit nervous after finding that out too.
It's scary, and a lot of folks don't know this stuff. And to the point about the action you're trying to take, it's so important, because I feel like many companies just try to push it onto the consumer, right? Like, you figure it out, you do a better job of recycling, of this, that, and the other, where it's like, no, you could be making less of this stuff. We could use real legitimate policy to answer some of these questions and find solutions. And so I'm just really personally passionate about it. I'm really glad you're doing this work. Thank you so much for that. And certainly looking forward to hearing more as time goes on. But that's also not the only thing you're working on right now. So I'd love it if we could touch a little bit on the Safe and Healthy Foods campaign, because obviously it's extremely important that we have high quality food to ingest, right? Like, that's kind of a no-brainer. But I'm wondering how you're hoping to do that, because I think to some, it might sound easier said than done.
Yeah. VPIRG has worked on food in a lot of different ways throughout the years. The way that we're kind of narrowing in on it right now is we're mainly focusing on these big corporate food giants, people that are, taking food and they're stripping out the nutrients, and instead they're kind of pumping it with all of these toxic additives and excessive amounts of salt, sodium, sugar, fats. And what that does is it makes the food colorful and it makes the food taste good, but it also makes it really addictive. And then they funnel billions of dollars into advertising that food towards kids and getting kids addicted. And then unfortunately, now we live in a reality where 70% of kids' diets in the United States is that kind of addictive ultra-processed food. That's also, creating this public health crisis. 60% of Americans are suffering from these kind of diet-related chronic illnesses. That contributes to our $4.6 billion medical debt that we've accumulated in the country. And then it also just hurts, local agriculture, the people that produce the real sustainable food. they're competing against this industry of ultra processed foods, and that's really hard, especially at a time where there's a lot of federal funding cuts going on towards local farmers. So yeah, again, I know not the best news to be hearing, but this is another thing that we're doing so much work on, and I have been getting to work really closely on that initiative, which has been really exciting for me because, obviously everybody cares about food. We all have to eat it. And I feel very connected to this particular campaign just because it's so salient in my life in that way. I really do care about what I'm putting in my body, as I'm sure everybody else does. And there's a lot of ways that we're working on it. The first one is simply the idea of just kind of banning, the worst of the worst. There's a lot of really toxic chemicals and synthetic dyes that have been banned globally, or states here are working to ban them. And we want to join in on that traction here in Vermont. VPIRG is working really hard to rein in on those policies in the State House and get regulations on those chemicals.
Great.
The other thing is pushing producers to be more transparent. I mean, for all of the ultra-processed foods that are going to be sitting there on our grocery shelves, there should be warning labels. Consumers should be able to go into the grocery store and see that this particular food has a dangerous amount of sodium, sugar, fats, whatever may have you. And that's something we really want to work on. And then the final thing is just making sure that local ag is supported. We want to promote healthy food, and that also means supporting the people that are going to create it.
Incredible. I love that approach. It all sounds so important. And just to the point about transparency, I have to say, on a personal note, I'm a total menace in the grocery stores. Like, nobody will go with me because honestly, I use this app. It's called Yuka, Yuka. I might be not pronouncing it correctly, but I scan literally everything to just see, because it's so hard to know. Yeah. Like, the list of ingredients is long. You've never heard of half of this stuff, and you just want to know, like, what is in your food. So to have that kind of labeling system, or to just be more aware and not have to maybe scan every single thing before you put it into, your shopping cart, I think would be huge, among the many other things you mentioned, but that just struck a personal chord for me. Because it is scary. You try so hard to be healthy and to make the right choices for yourself, and you don't even know what you're working with. So, again, I know I keep saying this, but just really grateful that you're working on this and that we have folks doing this work, because there needs to be change. So thank you for that.
Clearly.
As I did with Anna, I wanted to close out with a game segment, just noting that some of these topics today are a little bit heavy, and it's great. It's promising. We're moving towards the right direction, but it can still be hard to hear some of this stuff, right? So I thought we would end on a fun note, if that's okay with you. A little game of this or that, State House edition. And it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to name two things, and you tell me which you prefer. You can tell me why, but you don't have to. If you want to hold that close to your chest, that's fine. And it shouldn't take us too long. I've just got 5 questions, if that's good with you.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so let's play a quick round of this or that, State House edition, with Alexis Drown. All right, a rally at the State House steps or holding a sign outside the Senate chamber?
Oh my gosh, I think definitely a rally at the State House steps. It is so powerful. I mean, I was there for when you guys did the youth lobby, and that image, seeing everybody outside, like, goosebumps. It's crazy.
The energy is
so special.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, sure. Have to agree. All right, giving testimony or meeting with a legislator one-on-one?
Probably meeting with a legislator one-on-one. I think that honestly, those conversations can be so much more natural than you think they're going to be. A lot of our legislators really do want to talk with you about the changes that they can make, and it's a lot more comfortable than maybe giving testimony in front of the entire committee.
Right. And they're just people at the end of the day. So when you have those one-on-one conversations, you talk about hobbies and interests and other things too. Like, it just kind of naturally comes up. So yeah, feels a lot less scary than perhaps giving testimony.
I agree.
All right. Hanging out in the State House cafeteria or watching House activities from the balcony?
I love the cafeteria. I spend a lot of any time I don't have a specific place to be. That's my go-to. It's just like where I first did work on my very first day, and now it's my one spot. Let's go. So
you can grab a snack whenever you want.
True. Energy drinks are close by.
Thank God for that. All right. Calling the sergeant at arms or sending an email to a legislator?
Probably sending an email. I think I've been doing a lot of that lately, and I think I've gotten very, very used to it. And I get to, I can proofread, which I can't do in my phone call.
Very true. Yeah. The phone call can go pretty rogue, just like how I can go pretty rogue, just talking.
Get too passionate and start yelling. Oh, God.
Right. Okay. And buying an ornament from the gift shop or taking a tour of the State House building?
Taking a tour, definitely. I mean, there's still rooms that I haven't been in yet. I would love to have another opportunity to tour, but this time I want to see all the hidden spaces, places I've never gotten to go.
Have you been into the lounge yet?
I haven't been in the one that's
it's not open to the public.
Yeah.
I only just went in for the first time a few weeks ago. There was some special meeting that was open to the public, but it got moved to the lounge. So we were allowed to go into the lounge. Anyway, it was very cool. So no matter how many years you've been working in the State House, you can still end up in some really cool spaces.
All right. My new goal before the fellowship ends is to make it into the lounge.
Get into the lounge and maybe to the dome. I've heard that's pretty cool. I've never been so the dome, but I don't know. We can both try to work.
We'll make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Alexis,
for having me. This has been so fun.
Yeah. And again, just so appreciate the work. And I know you'll keep us posted, and best of luck with everything that's going on. But if there's anything else that you want to shout out or cover before I let you get back to it, feel free. And if not.
Yeah, I would say one more thing is just that this is a really awesome time to contact your legislators and tell them that you want them to take action on these kinds of issues. Even if we don't get it out this year, we'll be back in January and we can pick up where we left off. So
perfect.
Yeah, totally do that.
Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
You too.
And that's our episode. Thank you to Anna and Alexis for joining us today. And as always, if you want to learn more about anything we talked about today, you can go to vpirg.org, get on our mailing list, and follow us on social media. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and rate us 5 stars. If you have questions, ideas, thoughts for future episodes, be sure to reach out to us at jheiden@vpirg.org. That's JHEIDEN@VPIRG.org. As always, I have to give a big shout out to my co-producer, Elijah Cushion. I'm Jordan Heiden, and you've been listening to Vermont's Voice. Take care and talk soon.